Look Beyond 2040, and welcome to a very special edition of the Progressive Rock and Metal Album Review Series. And today I'm going to be taking a look at the amazing and impressive catalogue from one of the finest bands to ever come out of Sweden. And this band has been a force since bursting onto the scene in the early 1990s, and they are still going very strong to this day as we speak. And this is a band that I've been wanting to discuss on this series for quite a while now. I've made little mentions here and there on various editions when discussing some of this band's later albums that I was going to put together a special edition of this series dedicated to this band and discuss their entire catalogue of albums. And I've just got finished listening to this band's entire catalogue of albums, and they are some of the most impressive music I've ever heard. And I'm super excited to be discussing this band's entire catalogue of albums. And this is a band that, quite frankly, in my honest opinion, need no introduction whatsoever. I am talking about, of course, the one and only, as you can plainly see by the shirt I am wearing, Swedish heavy metal band Katatonia. So, Katatonia, one of the best bands to ever come out of Sweden, and for my money, one of the best live bands I have ever seen. I've seen Katatonia live on three different occasions, and they were unbelievable shows. Although I didn't enjoy the first time that I saw Katatonia, nothing to do with the music was tremendous. It was very chaotic. It was packed, and I mean packed like full house to the point where you couldn't even buy a drink. I couldn't really see the band, couldn't really get to appreciate them properly. It was very off-putting because you had a lot of people who just wouldn't keep quiet. It was shouting, and it's just not a good experience through no fault of the band, but it just wasn't that enjoyable for me, and I couldn't really appreciate the live experience of seeing Catatonia because of the environment and the atmosphere. It just wasn't that great for me. But it was still a good show from what I remember. The rest of it I choose not to remember because of how things were. But the next two shows I saw of Catatonia were much better from a live experience and a listening experience. And the two shows that I saw after the first one was so much better. Such a much better experience for me and much more enjoyable. So, the first time I became aware of Catatonia was through my dad. And initially, I wasn't a great fan of Catatonia. I respected them as a band and all of the members for their abilities and their playing, but there was just something about Catatonia I couldn't really get into them because the first time I heard Catatonia was one of their early albums when they were more of a doom metal band, and there was a lot of screaming vocals and very, not to probably the extreme like Opeth are, but it was certainly borderlining towards that sort of style of music, and just wasn't really that sold on them. I thought, okay, they're good players, they can play, they can write great music, but just didn't really get into them that much. I just found a lot of the early Catatonia stuff to be very gloomy, and there was nothing really to get my teeth into. But fast forward many years later, I sat down and listened to a Catatonia album, which was Night is the New Day, and I listened to it all the way through, and it was an excellent album. They had completely changed to when I first heard them, where they were more like a doom metal sort of style band with gothic influences. With the album that I listened to from Catatonia, they were much more like a progressive metal band, very similar to the style of Opeth with lots of acoustic guitars, mellotrons, heavy bass work, you name it. And I was really impressed. I thought, okay, this is certainly a different Catatonia to the one I heard years earlier. And I thought to myself, maybe I should give these guys a chance. So I would listen to various albums, a couple of odd tracks here and there, and I liked what I heard. Obviously, I never really listened to every single Catatonia album. There were a couple of selected albums I listened to which really won me over. But it wasn't until I got to see Catatonia live that they completely proved me wrong. I thought, okay, these guys are an excellent band. Maybe I should check out some of their other stuff, which I did, and I liked what I heard. And obviously, the later albums really won me over. Very impressive. So I decided to take it upon myself to listen to their entire catalogue of albums. And holy cow, I loved what I heard. Very impressive, in my opinion. And as I said earlier, some excellent music, some really good stuff here from Catatonia. And I've been a Catatonia fan ever since. So, Catatonia was formed in 1991 by longtime childhood friends Jonas Relinsky and Anders Nystrom. And Catatonia originally was a collaborative duo project. Relinsky would play drums and he would provide clean and screaming vocals, and Nystrom would play guitars and bass. So throughout most of their early years, Catatonia were primarily a duo. So Rensky would provide the lyrics as the lyricist, and Nystrom would provide all of the music as the composer. But it was very much a collaborative band effort on both their parts, and they would occasionally invite various other musicians to sit in with them and provide guest contributions. But ultimately, Catatonia was primarily a collaborative duo project. And a lot of Catatonia's early music was very heavily influenced by death metal, doom metal, and there was also some gothic influences in their music as well. As at the time of when Catatonia was formed, death metal and doom metal was getting really popular in Europe. So it was no surprise that Catatonia would be heavily influenced by that entire scene that was ongoing at the time in the early 1990s. So after putting together a demo EP, this would lead to Catatonia putting out their first album, which came out in 1993, and they recruited a bass player named Guillaume Lehush, and it was a power trio recording, although it is credited as the band of Rensky and Nystrom, but it was very much in the power trio outfit. And as Catatonia would go through their history as a band, they would have a number of lineup changes. Sometimes the band were five guys, sometimes it was six, but throughout most of Catatonia's run, you always had Jonas Redensky and Anders Nystrom, who pretty much were Catatonia. They were the core of the band from its inception. And they've had some interesting periods in their career. In more recent years, they've kind of evolved into a progressive metal type of band, but they still retain a lot of their early influences of doom metal and death metal, but there's a proggy quality to their music. And Catatonia, When you hear Catatonia, you know straight away it's them, as they've got a very unique sound. There are very few bands out there that sound like them. They have the progressive metal element, they have the gothic element, and the doom and death metal element in there as well. But there's also a melancholy quality to their music. A lot of their music is very laid back, especially in the later albums, and a lot of their music is very atmospheric as well. That can be at times really heavy, but ultimately, when you hear Catatonia, you know straight away it's them. And a lot of the sound of Catatonia's music is Rensky's melancholy vocals and Anders' shredding guitar playing. And there's also some keyboards in there as well. They've added that to their sound. So they really have changed a lot throughout their history. So they've gone from being a doom slash death metal type of band to a much more progressive metal band, very much in the style and realm of another Swedish contemporary of theirs. That is, of course, Opeth. So, for today's special edition, I am going to be discussing the entire catalogue of Catatonia, which is a total of 13 studio albums. And as always, I am going to be talking about each album individually and choosing which one I think is the best one. Not an easy challenge. As I mentioned already, I've just finished listening to Catatonia's entire catalogue of albums. There are some excellent music. There are some albums that are brilliant. There are some albums that are absolute classics. There might be one or two that are a little bit underrated. And there are a couple of albums that I feel are maybe not as strong as others. And of course, there are some albums that I feel are a little bit better than others. But I think what you'll see as you'll go through Catatonia's catalogue of albums is they all continue to get better. And it's one of those bands you really got to give them a chance because as you go through their catalogue, you'll see Catatonia really slowly start to evolve and become the band that we know them to be today. And as I said, it's an amazing ride. It's an interesting one, but a very enjoyable one. And a lot of their albums, as far as the length of their music, they're quite short. They don't really do the big, long, epic tracks like, for example, Opeth or The Flower Kings or even Pain of Salvation. A lot of their songs are fairly short, so clocking in about 4 to 5 minutes. Obviously, some of their earlier songs were a little bit long, but they're not really known for doing big, long tracks. The longest track you probably would get from them is maybe 8 or 9 minutes long, but they're not really known for big, long tracks. They keep it more short and condensed. And I think that's a good thing because sometimes the quality is far more important than the quantity, because you can have an album where you've only got 6 tracks, but those 6 tracks could be outstanding. Whereas with some bands who've got a lot of material on their albums, so they could have like 15 tracks, you might probably like 6 or 7 of them, and the rest are like fillers. But I like the formula that Catatonia have for their albums. The shorter the albums, the better it is for the quality of the music. And I think that's what's helped them with their longevity. So it's not really a case of doing short songs for radio play. They just do what works for them. And from what I've seen and what I've heard, it's worked very well for them thus far. And it's brought them huge success. And I remember when I saw Catatonia the first time round, they must have played over 30 something songs. Now, to someone out there, they would probably think 30 something songs, that's a lot. But when you look at how long each song is, it's really not that long as you think because some of the songs they played, they joined them on. So it was like 3 songs in one. So it was like multiple medleys. But it works. And because the songs are so short, you really don't tend to notice it that much because the music is so good. So we're going to start with the first album, and this one came out in 1993, and this one is called Dance of December Souls. So this is Catatonia's first album, and as I mentioned, it's primarily a collaborative duo project. And I found this album to be quite normal. It's not terrible, but it's not good. It's pretty average. It's the band's first album. They don't sound like what they are now, obviously. It's very much in the style of death and doom metal with some gothic influences, and it's a power trio album, but it's primarily a collaborative duo project. And the music, for the most part, I thought was okay. It was very well put together. The production is not as strong as the later albums, but it's okay for what it is. And there's a lot of screaming vocals. You know, Rensky is a great singer, but I feel that his vocal performances would get better in the later stages of Catatonia's career. He sounds fine here, but I don't think he's as good a singer as he would go on to become later on. But it's okay for what it is. It's very much what you expect, really. It's a lot of, bleh, it's kind of like that. But there's some really good playing and there's some good material. But as I said, it's a decent album, pretty normal. But I feel that Catatonia's best stuff would come much later on. But as I said, it's the debut album. No surprises here, but it's a good effort on Catatonia's part. So most of the music is written and composed by Jonas Rensky and Anders Nystrom. So as I mentioned already, Rensky would provide the lyrics and Nystrom would provide the music as well. So it's very much a duo effort on both their parts. And on this album, we've got 5 bonus tracks, and top to bottom, I thought this album was pretty decent. It's what you expect really from that style of music. There is some little proggy moments on this album, but as I said, the better stuff from Catatonia would come much later on. So we've got Seven Dreaming Souls, which is the opener. It's all right. Then we've got Gateways of Bereavement is great. In Silence Enshrined, pretty good track. Without God is good. Velvet Thorns of Drying Will is a pretty good track. Tomb of Insomnia is good. And Dancing December is good. And then the bonus tracks we've got here: Midwinter Gates Prologue, Without God, Palace of Frost, The Northern Silence, and Crimson Tears Epilogue. I found the bonus tracks of this album to be really good. I thought the bonus tracks were a lot more stronger than the main tracks. Not taking anything away from the main tracks, they're okay, but I thought the bonus tracks were much better, in my opinion. I thought they really carried the debut album, in my opinion. So the standout tracks for me are Without God, Tomb of Insomnia, Dancing December, In Silence Enshrined, and the standouts for me on the bonus tracks are Without God, Palace of Frost, and The Northern Silence. But good solid album, pretty decent effort for Catatonia. It's a pretty normal album, but I feel that the better stuff would come after this one. So there you have it. Dance of December Souls, the first album from Catatonia, and just merely a little warm up for what was to come in the future. But a decent effort from Catatonia's side. So there you have it. Dance of December Souls, pretty decent start from Catatonia, in my opinion. So we move on to the next album, and this one came out in 1996, and this one is called Brave Murder Day. So Brave Murder Day is the second album from Catatonia, and it features Mikael Åkerfeldt of Opeth on vocals, and he came into the band because Rensky was unable to perform screaming vocals anymore due to health issues. So Åkerfeldt is pretty much, for this album anyway, the replacement for Rensky, although Rensky still plays on this album, but he just doesn't perform any vocals. And this album, Brave Murder Day, is a big improvement from the debut. I felt that the quality of Catatonia's music really picked up in a big way, and a lot of that is due to the presence of Mikhail Ekerfeld. As we all know, he is the singer, guitarist, composer, and frontman for Opeth. So he brings the Opeth influence into the music for Catatonia, and it's a really good album, very enjoyable. And you could say that Ackerfeld's presence on this album quietly helped set the stage for Catatonia to become the band that they are now. Because if you listen to some of the later Catatonia albums, they do sound very similar to Opeth, and you could point to this album as the early beginnings of that evolution. But it's a very good album, very enjoyable, and Ackerfeld really just goes for it on this album. Still very much in that death metal, doom metal style of album, but as I said, a big improvement from the first album, in my opinion. So we've got Brave, which is great. Murder is excellent. Day is good. Rain Room is brilliant, 12 is great, and End Time is good. And we've got three bonus tracks. Nowhere is good, At Last is great, and Inside the Fall is a great closer. Top to bottom, good quality album, big improvements from the debut album, and some really good material on this one. And the standouts for me are Murder, Rain Room, End Time, At Last, and Inside the Fall. But top to bottom, it's a pretty strong album from Catatonia and a big improvement from the debut, in my opinion. So there you have it. Brave Murder Day, great album, unbelievable vocal performance from Mikko Ackerfeldt of Opeth. Just a really good, strong album and a big step up from the debut. Tremendous stuff. Love it. So we move on to the next album, and this one came out in 1988, and this one is called Discouraged Ones. So this is the third album from Catatonia, and a very enjoyable one as well. I thought this one was equally as strong as Brave Murder Day, and it's a fantastic album. They don't quite sound like the Catatonia we know now, but you can definitely hear the rumblings of what we would go on to know now, but still a very good album, very enjoyable. Still very much in that doomy, gothic, death metal, doom metal style of music, but some really good material on here. So we've got I Break, which is a great opener. Stalemate is excellent. Dead House is good. Relention is great. Cold Ways is good. Gone is great. Last Resort is brilliant. Nerve is good. Saw You Drown is good. And Instrumental is good. And Distrust is excellent. And then we've got two bonus tracks, Quiet World and Scarlet Heavens. Top to bottom, a very strong album, very enjoyable, and you can really see Catatonia are just upping their game with each album. And that's what I like about Catatonia's albums. They always strive to be better. So just when you think that, oh, they've done the best album you've ever heard, they'll turn around and say, well, we think it's the best, but we can still do more. They're not content with just sticking to one thing. They're always pushing and striving to find the best version of Catatonia. And that's what I've always respected them for, is that they're not sitting still. They're still staying true to themselves, but they still want to improve and they still want to be better. And I like them for that. So the standouts for me are Stalemate, Cold Ways, Gone, Instrumental, Saw You Drown, Quiet World, and Scarlet Heavens. But top to bottom, a very strong album and very enjoyable as well. And it does pack a bit of a punch, but as I said, a lot of these albums are quite heavy, but they don't bash it over your head with the heaviness. It's got a nice, good balance between the heaviness and the atmospheric, but they combine the two and pull it off as good as any band I've ever seen or heard. I think they do a really good job with bringing the best of both worlds into their music. So there you have it. Discouraged Ones, a very enjoyable album from Catatonia. Just tremendous stuff and a good album from these guys. And the best thing about it is they're just warming up. So there you have it. Discouraged Ones. Love it. So we move on to the next album, and this one came out in 1989, and this one is called Tonight's Decision. Another great album from Catatonia, and this sees the band not being as much influenced by metal, so they're going in a more alternative direction, but still a very enjoyable album. So you still got plenty of that classic Catatonia that we all know and love. And I thought this album was really good. I thought, it was still much like a doomy death metal style of album, but a bit more away from that. So they're going in more of a different direction, but very enjoyable album. And we've got a couple of bonus tracks as well. And we've even got a Jeff Buckley cover version as well. But a really good, solid, strong album, in my opinion. So we got For My Demons, which is good. I Am Nothing is great. In Death, a song, another great track as well. Had to Leave is good. This Punishment is excellent. Right Into the Bliss is good. No Good Can Come of This is one of the best tracks on this album, I think. Strained is excellent. A Darkness Coming is good. Nightmares by the Sea, another great track as well. Black Session is good. And then the two bonus tracks we've got No Devotion and Fractured. Top to bottom, Tonight's Decision I thought was a really good, strong album. And you can really start to see Catatonia just getting bigger and bigger and really starting to evolve slowly into what we know. But I really like this album a lot. I thought this had some really good tracks. And the standout tracks for me are I Am Nothing, Right Into the Bliss, No Good Can Come of This, A Darkness Coming, Nightmares by the Sea, Black Session, and No Devotion. But top to bottom, I thought this was a really good, strong album and really enjoyable, in my opinion. It was just a great fun album. And Ackerfeld was a big part of this album. He helped record and produce and provided some ideas for his buddies. So I thought they really did a good job working with him. So, you know, even though Ackerfeld is no longer part of Catatonia, he still remains great friends with these guys, and he occasionally would sit in with them and collaborate. And nothing good like seeing two great bands helping each other out to get better. So, and who better to have help than Opeth's Mikael Ackerfeld? Doesn't get any better than that. So there you have it. Tonight's Decision, excellent album from Catatonia, and really enjoyable. So we move on to the next album, and this one came out in 2001, and this one is called Last Fair Deal Gone Down. I think with this album, this was where Catatonia really started to shift into gears and really kick the door down to start becoming the Catatonia we know now. I just thought this was a really good album. There's some tracks on here that are mandatory Catatonia classics, like you really got to listen to them. And there's a couple of favorites of mine on here, which I just absolutely love. If I was to start putting together a compilation of some of Catatonia's best songs, this is one of those albums with some of these tracks I would start with. There's some really good stuff on here. So we've got Dispossession, which is excellent, one of my favorite tracks. Chrome is good. We Must Bury You is excellent. Tear Gas is one of the best Catatonia songs ever. Transpire is good. Tonight's Music is great. Clean Today is good. The Futurist Speech is brilliant. Passing Bird is great. Sweet Nurse is good. Don't Tell a Soul is excellent. And then we've got three bonus tracks. We've got Sulphur, which is good. March 4 is good. And Help Me Disappear. Top to bottom, very good, strong album. one of the best Catatonia albums in their catalogue. Just absolutely love this one. Just thought this was a really good album. And for me, this is where we're now starting to come into the 2000s now, and we're now heading more in towards some of my favorite Catatonia albums. And this is where I started to become a real fan of their stuff. Don't get me wrong, I love the 90s stuff, but I think the 2000s is where they really started to peak. So, standout tracks for me are Disposition, Tear Gas, Clean Today, Passing Bird, Sweetness, Don't Tell a Soul, and March 4 and Help Me Disappear. But top to bottom, really good, strong album. And in my opinion, one of Catatonia's best albums. So there you have it. Last Fair Deal Gone Down. One of the best albums from their catalogue, in my opinion. Absolutely enjoyed listening to this one. Very good album. So we move on to the next album, and this one came out in 2003, and this one is called Viva Emptiness. So, as I mentioned, we are now heading into the 2000s, and now we're coming up to some of my favorite Catatonia albums of all time. And this album has got some kick ass tracks. Really love this one a lot, and I feel that we are now starting to head into the Catatonia we know now, and this album is just absolutely amazing. Just lots of burning guitar playing, heavy bass work, Rensky's on top vocal form, just really tremendous stuff from these guys. And this side of their catalogue, you can really see Catatonia really starting to peak and starting to hit their stride and just putting out classic album after classic album. So we've got Ghost of the Sun is a great opener. Sleeper is excellent. Criminals, one of my favourite tracks from this album. A Premonition is good. Will I Arrive is great. Burn the Remembrance is good. Wealth is excellent. 1 Year from Now is good. Walking by a Wire is good. Complicity is good. Evidence is good. Omata is good. Wait Outside is good. And Inside the City of Glass, which is a fantastic closer. But this is a really good album, really strong album, and just absolute kick ass, in my opinion. And the standout tracks for me are Ghost of the Sun, Criminals, Wealth, 1 Year from Now, Walking by a Wire, Evidence, Wait Outside, and Inside the City of Glass. Absolutely love this album, very enjoyable, and one of my favourites from Catatonia's catalogue. Just a really good, strong album. So there you have it. Viva Emptiness. Mellow, dark, heavy, atmospheric, and all round misery. Just the way we like it. Just a great album from Catatonia. Love it. So we move on to the next album, and this one came out in 2006, and this one is called The Great Cold Distance. Another fantastic album from Catatonia, and they're just really going for it here. They're just absolutely putting out banger after banger after banger, and this one is no exception. Just some really good, strong material from Catatonia. Lots of classic tracks, and we've got a couple of bonus tracks as well. But top to bottom, this is a very strong album. So we've got Leaders is a great track. Deliberation is good. Soil's Song is good. My Twin is good. Consternation is good. Follower is good. Rusted is great. Increase is brilliant. July is excellent. In the Whites is brilliant. The Itch is good. And Journey Through Pressure is good. And then the two bonus tracks, Displaced and Dissolving Bonds. Tremendous Catatonia album from top to bottom. Some really good tracks on here. And I really feel they're starting to hit their peak now. But I just really enjoyed this one a lot. And as I said earlier, a lot of Catatonia's albums are relatively short, so they're like 30 to 40 minutes in total. And a lot of their songs are fairly short, like 3 to 4 minutes, the longest being six, and they might stretch it to maybe 8 or 9 minutes, but they don't really do the big long epic numbers like some of the other Swedish bands do, but they do what they do very well, and it makes for a very enjoyable listening experience. So the standout tracks for me are Deliberation, Soil Song, Follower, Rusted, July, The Itch, Journey Through Pressure, and Dissolving Bonds. But really like this album a lot, and I thought this was another favourite of mine, and just great stuff, just absolutely great stuff here. So there you have it, The Great Cold Distance, another fantastic album from Catatonia, in my opinion. Love it. So we move on to the next album, and this one came out in 2009. And this one could very well be my all time favorite Catatonia album. And this was the one that I listened to all the way through, and it's one that I go back to the most. And this one is called Night is the New Day. For me, this is probably my all time favorite Catatonia album. Very much similar in the style of Opeth. Lots of great tracks, just an excellent album. I think they really started to hit their peak with this one, and just got some excellent songs and some absolute classics on this album. And we've got four bonus tracks. One of them is a remix, but just a really good album, in my opinion. So we got the heavy Forsaker, which is brilliant. The Longest Year is excellent. The Opeth style driven Idle Blood, which is just absolutely brilliant. It's one of my favourite tracks on this album. Onward into Battle is heavy, is dark, and it's aggressive. Just absolutely brilliant. Liberation is excellent. The Promise of Deceit is brilliant. Nephrim is great. New Night is brilliant. Inheritance is excellent. Day and then The Shade is great. Departure is brilliant. And then the bonus tracks we've got Ash Hen is good. Sold Heart is good. Day and then The Shade, Frank Default Mix. And then we got Idle Blood, Linjay 14. Top to bottom, Night is the New Day, probably my all time favourite Catatonia album. And I would probably say it's one of their absolute best ever. I just think it's a fantastic album. Top production, more keyboards added into the mix. They did use like mellotrons on some of their other albums, but you can really start to see them heading into a much more proggier direction, and it works. It works really, really well. And the standout tracks for me are The Longest Year, Idle Blood, Onward into Battle, The Promise of Deceit, New Night, Inheritance, Day and then The Shade, Ash Hen, and Sold Heart. But holy cow, dynamite album, and as I said, my all time favourite Catatonia album. So there you have it. Night is the New Day. Absolutely love this album, and I got to see Catatonia play the whole album in its entirety to mark their 10th anniversary. One of the best gigs I've ever been to. Just absolutely loved it. So there you have it. Night is the New Day. Love this album so much. So we move on to the next album, and this one came out in 2012, and this one is called Dead End Kings. For me, Dead End Kings is the sequel to Night is the New Day, and this is where I feel Catatonia really peaked. I thought this was an excellent album, lots of classic tracks, and holy cow, doesn't get any better than this. And if I was to recommend, you know, a Catatonia album to anyone, it would definitely be Dead End Kings and Night is the New Day. I think they are mandatory Catatonia albums that I think everyone should listen to. They're just really good albums. And Dead End Kings, as I said, I feel this is where they really started to peak. And I think they were just getting better and better as far as I'm concerned. So we got The Parting, which is a great opener. The One You Are Looking For Is Not Here is excellent. Hypnon is great. The Racing Heart is brilliant. Buildings is excellent. Leech is excellent. Ambitions is good. Undo You is good. Letvian is good. First Prayer is good. And my all time favourite Catatonia track from this album is Dead Letters. Top to bottom, great album. The keyboards are more becoming prominent in the music, whereas before they were kind of in the background and just more for filling out the sound. Now you're hearing the keyboards are starting to play a bigger role in the music, and I feel that when Catatonia start adding keyboards and synths, I think they really started to embrace the progressive sort of style of music, and I think it worked overall. I think it just made Catatonia into a much better sounding band, in my opinion. And the standout tracks for me are Dead Letters, The One You Are Looking For Is Not Here, Buildings, First Prayer, Undo You, and Ambitions. But the whole album, top to bottom, is excellent. To there you have it, Dead End Kings, one of my favourite Catatonia albums of all time, and one of the band's best ever. Just absolutely love it. Great album. So we move on to the next album, and this one came out in 2016, and this one is called The Fall of Hearts. Another great album from Catatonia, another one of their best, and lots of great songs. Rensky is on top vocal form, and there's nice strong burning guitar playing. Everybody in the band is on top form, and Catatonia are red hot by this point and just putting out some tremendous albums. And as you go through the 2000s portion into the 2010s, they're just getting stronger and stronger. And it's kind of funny because when you look at the early Catatonia albums and you look at the later Catatonia albums, yes, it's the same band in name, but they're like two completely different bands. And that's not a bad thing, but it's quite amazing when you see how much they've changed. And it didn't just happen overnight, this happened over the course of a few albums. And the material that these guys are putting out is just unbelievable. So we've got Takeover, which is brilliant. Sewing is great. Old Heart Falls is good. Decima is good. Sanction is good. Residual is good. Surak is good. Last Song Before the Fade is brilliant. Shifts is excellent. The Night Subscriber is great. Pale Flag is good. Parser is good. And Vakaren is good. But top to bottom, just an amazing album from Catatonia. And these guys can just do no wrong. And they're just getting better and better. And the standout tracks for me are Old Heart Falls, Decima, Sanction, Residual, Shifts, The Night Subscriber, Pale Flag, and Parser. But top to bottom, just a fantastic album. So there you have it. The Fall of Hearts, another great album from Catatonia, and just absolute dynamite stuff. So we move on to the next album, and this one came out in 2020, and this one is called City Burials. As you'd expect from Catatonia, dark, melancholic, heavy, atmospheric, you name it, it's all here. And this album is very commercial, and I don't mean in the sense that commercial in the poppy sort of realm, but it's got a lot of catchy tracks, and it's got a very commercial sound to it, but it still sounds very much like Catatonia, and there's a lot of great songs on here. And this really captures the mood and darkness of what was going on in the pandemic period. And I thought Catatonia did a really good job capturing that adolescence and isolation and loneliness of what was going on during that time. But Catatonia, when it comes to darkness and misery, they're the masters. There's a reason why they're called the Masters of Misery, but it's a really good album and really lets you into that frame of mind of how everyone was feeling around that time. But I thought this album is just an absolute classic, just one of their best albums. Very hard hitting, very dark, very heavy, and got a very melancholy feel to it, which is what Catatonia have always been known for. But just a really good, strong album, in my opinion. So this album has got two bonus tracks. So we got the first track, Heart Set to Divide, which is a great opener. Behind the Blood is great. Lac Kuya is good. Rain is good. The Winter of Our Passing is good. Vanishes is great. City Glaciers is good. Flicker is good. Lac Visis is good. Neon Epitaph is good, Untrodden is good, and the two bonus tracks, Closing of the Sky and Fighters, which is an unbelievable track. And the standout tracks for me are Heart Set to Divide, Behind the Blood, Vanishes, City Glaciers, Flicker, Neon Epitaph, and Fighters. Top to bottom, another great album from Catatonia. And this portion of their catalogue, just really enjoyable and some tremendous music, in my opinion. So there you have it. City Burials, excellent album from Catatonia, and did a wonderful job in capturing the mood of 2020 as far as I'm concerned. Just tremendous stuff. Absolutely love it. So we move on to the next album, and this one came out in 2023. And this one is another favourite album of mine from Catatonia, and this one is called Sky Void of Stars. Excellent album, very commercial, very hard hitting, very heavy, atmospheric, you name it. This album is just absolutely kick ass. And this album would sadly mark the final appearance of Anders Nystrom as he would leave Catatonia a few years after the making of and release of this album. And, you know, I've heard stories about that he didn't really have any input in Catatonia's music, but you can still hear a lot of him. You know, even though Rensky has more or less taken the running of writing and composing the music, you can still hear a lot of Anders' presence. You know, it's not like he was pushed aside. You can still hear him quite a lot, and he absolutely rips it up here, and as do the entire band. I just think this is a really good, strong album, one of Catatonia's strongest in recent years. I just thought this was a really good album. So we got the first track, Austerity, which is a badass opener. Colossal Shade is great. Opaline is brilliant. Birds is great. Drab Moon, probably my favourite track of the entire album. Just absolutely dark, brooding, and moody and atmospheric. Just absolutely brilliant. Impermalescence is great. And Secrelera is great. Aterium is great. And No Beacon to Illuminate Our Fall. Top to bottom, just classic Catatonia. Absolutely enjoyed this one a lot. And the standout tracks for me are Austerity, Colossal Shade, Birds, Drab Moon, and No Beacon to Illuminate Our Fall. Just an amazing album. And as I said, this would mark the final appearance of founding member Anders Nystrom, who would leave Catatonia just a few years after this album was released. And it's a shame, really, because, you know, when I think of Catatonia, I think of Jonas Rensky and Anders Nystrom. You know, throughout all of the different lineup changes, that was your core duo, those two. And, you know, losing a founding member, especially the one who formed the band, is a big blow. But, you know, it is what it is. I'm bummed he's gone, but he goes out on a real high on this album. Just fantastic stuff. So there you have it. Sky Void of Stars, one of the absolute best Catatonia albums in recent years. Just really enjoyed this one a lot. And I got to see Catatonia play a lot of this material live, and it was just unbelievable. And they pretty much played in a room full of smoke, so you didn't really get to see them that much, but you could see like the shadow silhouettes in this fog-like atmosphere, and it was just one of the most impressive things I've ever seen. Just a band playing in mystery, just thought was absolutely amazing. So there you have it, Sky Void of Stars, one of the best Catatonia albums ever, in my opinion. Just fantastic. So we move on to the next album, and this one came out in 2025, and this one is called Nightmares as Extensions of the Waking State. So this is the first Catatonia album not to feature Anders Nystrom. So Jonas Rensky is pretty much the only original member on this entire album. And a lot of people have said that this album is probably the best album Catatonia have ever made in their entire career. That's a big statement to make. I've said this before. You know, when you look at a lot of the albums Catatonia have put out over the years, I would be very hard pressed to argue with that statement because this album, which I've listened to quite a number of times already, is really good. It's a really strong album. And, you know, for people to say that this is the best album they've ever made, I wouldn't be hard to disagree with that. It probably could very well be their best album they've ever made. And, you know, I would have thought, you know, going in, because I was quite concerned, you know, without Anders Nystrom on guitar, how much of his absence would affect Catatonia with this new album. Didn't hurt them at all. And that's not me saying that, oh, I'm glad he's gone. No, I'm not glad he's gone. I'm quite sad he's gone, actually. But him leaving didn't really hurt Catatonia at all. It's not like they changed. They just carried on doing what they're doing. And, you know, this album just absolutely rocks. A lot of good songs on here, no weak tracks whatsoever. And that's not saying that the others have weak tracks, they don't, but there's just something about this album. It's just really strong. The production is tight, it sounds good, it's a great sounding album. Everybody's on top form. The bass work is heavy, the guitar playing is great. Rensky's vocals, in my opinion, have never ever sounded better than they do on here. So it's kind of hard to, you know, disagree with people when they say this is the best album Catatonia have ever put out. They could be right. Maybe when it's all said and done, maybe this is the best album they've ever done. Who knows? Time will tell, really, but it's really good. That's all I'm going to say. It's a fantastic album. So we've got Thrice, which is an excellent opener. The Liquid Eye is brilliant. Wind of No Change is great. Lilac is great. Temporal is brilliant. Departure of Trails is great. Warden is brilliant. The Light Which I Bleed is great. Efter Solin is great. And In the Event of is just brilliant. But top to bottom, I think Nightmares as Extensions of the Waking State is a fantastic album and pretty much lets everyone know that Catatonia are still here and we're still going to keep doing what we're doing and we're not slowing down for anyone. And it definitely shows here. I think it's a really strong album. The fact that Rensky's pretty much taken over the entire running of Catatonia hasn't affected the quality of the music whatsoever. If this was a case of Rensky's taken over and they were putting out duff albums, then I would say Anders has got an argument. But that's not happened here. The quality is still there. And, you know, I'm not trying to crap on Anders. You know, he's a brilliant musician. He started Catatonia with Rensky all those years ago. But the absence of him doesn't really affect Catatonia that much. It, in fact, you could argue that maybe Catatonia have got better. Time will tell, but it's a really good album. And the standouts for me are Thrice, Liquid Eye, Wind of No Change, Departure Trails, The Lights Which I Bleed, Efter Solem, and In the Event of. But I love it. Just top to bottom, one of the best albums Catatonia have ever put out. Is it the best album of their career? Quite possibly. It might be. Time will tell. But is it one of their best? Is it up there with Dead End Kings and Night is the New Day and Sky Void of Stars? You damn right it is. Absolutely. 100%. If I was going to put like maybe a top five, Catatonia best of 2000s to the 20s, I would probably put this up there. Really strong album, in my opinion. So there you have it. Nightmares as extensions of The Waking State. One of the best albums Catatonia has put out in recent years, and certainly their strongest effort to date. And the absence of Anders Nystrom hasn't affected them musically at all, in my opinion. So there you have it. Nightmares as extensions of The Waking State. Excellent album and one of my favourites from Catatonia. Tremendous album. So, which Catatonia album do I think is the best one? Well, as I said at the beginning, there are some excellent albums. There are some albums that are classics. You know, there are a couple of albums that are underrated, and there are a couple of albums that are maybe not as strong. And there are a couple of albums I feel that are a little bit better than others. And there's no bad album in Catatonia's catalogue. They're all excellent, in my opinion. Any of these albums could be a number one or an all-time favorite. But if I had to choose one album, which I think is the best Catatonia album, it's going to be Night is the New Day, because this was the one that really got me into Catatonia and their music, and this was the album that really won me over and made me a Catatonia fan. And a lot of the classic tracks that I like from Catatonia mostly come from this album. Just a fantastic album, very similar to Opeth. I just think it's absolutely amazing. And it's my all time favourite Catatonia album. I just absolutely love it. So there you have it. Night is the New Day, my all-time favourites Catatonia album, and probably the best album of their entire catalogue as far as I'm concerned. Absolutely love this one so much, and it's the one I listen to the most. Classic stuff, in my opinion. So that's going to be it from me. I'm going to wrap this up now. What's your favourite Catatonia album? Is it Dance of December Souls, Brave Murder Day, Discouraged Ones, Tonight's Decision, Last Fair Deal Gone Down, Viva Emptiness, The Great Cold Distance, Night is the New Day, Dead End Kings, The Fall of Hearts, City Burials, Sky Void of Stars, or Nightmares as extensions of the waking state? There's no right or wrong answer. We all have our favourite albums. You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will see all of you next time for another edition of the Progressive Rock and Metal album review series. So until next time, take care, everybody, and stay safe. And once again, as always, much appreciated. Thanks for listening.